Hey, everybody. So I know, right? I didn't give any warning for this live, and I apologize. So it is November 3rd, 2024. It is a Sunday. I just got back from church. Just sent my godchild, you all know who he is, home for a little bit. And a lot of you have been asking me to cover Peanut the squirrel. And I kind of didn't. And let me tell you guys why. Because I know how I feel about following the law. And good morning, Hopkinson. So, America has laws for a reason, folks. And I just kind of sat back and watched this craziness with Peanut the squirrel go on. And now I'm glad that I did because so much more is coming out about this story. And let me just go ahead and say this, don't get angry and turn it off without hearing me out because I have to build the story for you. I found this. Let's just start with the owner. So I'm going to play a little bit. Hopefully, you guys can see it. It's a little bit about the history of Peanut.
And instead of him running away, he actually crawled up me. So I took this little baby home. He only had one eye open. He had a really bad back limp. So I got home. I called a few vets. Unfortunately, I didn't get some good news back. They all said they would probably just euthanize him. So I went at it. I started researching squirrels. I got him on his diet. And about 8 months into our rehab, I actually released Peanut in my backyard. I was hoping he'd be able to live like a wildlife, but also be close enough to home, just in case he needed some extra food or some shelter. But unfortunately, he only spent a day and a half outside before he was attacked. I'm not quite sure what attacked him, but it ended up stealing half of his tail, so I didn't see him, sitting on my porch missing half of his tail, and that was pretty much the end of Peanut's wildlife career. So now he's just a strictly indoor squirrel. We have the best time together. Peanut was the first thing he would actually eat. Again, I didn't know very much about squirrels, so we were trying to give him nuts and stuff before formula and all that stuff. And the first thing he actually ate was peanut, so it kind of just stuck after that. And here we are today with Peanut the squirrel. So the funny thing about him is he's actually more of a cat. He's very
Okay, so you're right. You're right. I saw somebody said, Michelle said, out here like crazy, all of a sudden this distraction, right? Yeah, so they did, Veronica. So they euthanized both the squirrel and the raccoon. No, listen, don't turn it off. It's not going to trigger you because I'm going to tell you guys something. We're not going to talk about the euthanizing. That's already done. It's got nothing to do with all of us. Let's talk about the owner. So this guy, I started digging. I'm like, this guy wanted to open up an animal rescue in New York State. And he says, and he quite clearly states in this article, let me find it, that he knew. He said, yeah, like I knew it was illegal for me to have this squirrel. Like I knew. But did you guys also know that he is an OnlyFans? He has an OnlyFans, him and I guess it's his wife. That's right, Sims, his OnlyFans account. Okay. He has an OnlyFans account. So I have to agree that I'm starting to think that it says here to keep a squirrel for longer, a rehabilitator has to apply for a permit through the federal government, and those officials send investigators to check out the living environment for the animal and ascertain that it is safe. Caretakers are required to get regular veterinarian care for the animal, and the vet must also say that this animal is non-releasable. So this is a guy who started an animal rescue, but had an illegal squirrel and coon in his home all over the internet. And then he acts shocked that they're taken. Now, they're on the internet for, I'm assuming, years. Ah, yeah, something smelled bad with that first video. That's what I'm talking about, right? So here's my thing. Isn't it possible that this guy turned it in himself? Because he was in the process of filling out the correct paperwork to be able to keep the squirrel and did it because I also tracked down Call for justice for PNUT the squirrel, right? You guys want to know how much money has already been raised on the GoFundMe for this? $122,742. $122,742. Basically $123,000 over this. How are you an animal rescuer and you don't know the law? Or you do know the law, but you're so blatantly not caring of the law that you put the animals that you love in danger by putting them all over the internet. And then he makes this very odd comment where he says, thanks, internet. Like he's blaming us, like, thanks, internet, all cocky, like somebody watching him just turned him in. Right. Somebody just wrote at the bottom of the squirrel hole, it looks like holes. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. And it was actually Squirrel Tribe who tipped me off. Just listen to her.
Going to happen was because in 2015, they did the exact same thing with Donald Trump.
She's talking about the SNL thing, and we'll get to that. But listen to this.
They have so much porn on X. It is absolutely ridiculous. They have an OnlyFans account that is now going to blow up because they are suddenly plastered everywhere. New York Post, every kind of publication you can find is now talking about the squirrel and the raccoon, and everybody's saying, the squirrel and the raccoon are going to tip the scales in the election. People are smart. People are very smart. I just want to show you this. I want to show you this, and tell me you don't notice what I noticed immediately when I saw the video.
It's really that way.
All right. So this is the video. One of the first ones I saw of this guy holding the squirrel that he owns. If I could get my iPad to do its thing. Come on, work, broski. This is the video. And I want you to notice, this is the squirrel, this is PNUT. But I need you guys to notice that, what do you see there? Where's the squirrel? All I see is broski's junk, all right? This is a massive publicity stunt. Every single video I saw of his is about his crotch. Every single one. I was like, why are we looking at your twig and berry so much, sir? Like, this is a squirrel video. If your whole video is about squirrels, why are we up in here so often in your crotchal region? Then I noticed the female that he brings out. And the female who's in some of the videos with him, I'm not even going to say it as nicely as I could, but she looks like she has sex for money. And I mean that nicely. Because she is gorgeous and she's got a banging body and she dresses for it. So
So it all goes back to making them and all of this. I agree with Squirrel Tribe. I think after doing my own research, they tipped themselves off with the thought process that somehow they would get these animals back before the law took its normal process. Okay. So somebody said, well, who cares? The government can't take your pets. No, you're wrong. Squirrels and raccoons are wildlife. They're not pets. You need to know the law in the state that you live in, especially if you're going to be running an animal rescue like these people. So is it legit? Because I went to their animal rescue page and it says that you can't go tour it. See, I'm a forum and people know that they can call me and set up a tour to tour what I do here, my biochar, my worm castings, how to make compost. You can come take classes with me. I feed people on my property sometimes with like little luncheons. But this guy is saying that he's got an animal rescue, but you can't come to it. Now, I don't know if that is like a permanent thing or eventually they're going to release it. But basically, they have a petition for legislative change. Now, I agree with that, right? I to some degree. All right. Wildlife, squirrels are not pets, folks. I have in Louisiana, you can own a squirrel as a pet because after Hurricane Ida, we rescued a squirrel. We bottle fed him, but there came a point where he bit me and he was only like 9 or 10 weeks old and he bit me really hard. And at that point, I was like, he needs to be rehabilitated now, because I could see where that could be serious. The ones of you who watch Pawpaw Sammy, my dad has a permanent scar from right here where the squirrel bit him through the meat. And I won't tell you what he had to do to get it off. It bit through the meat. And he's 83 and the scar is still here. And he was like 14 when that happened. So I'm just saying, yes, Sims jewelry. Yeah, man, be kind. I agree. Yeah, lucky it wasn't a beaver. I agree, Mark. So all I'm saying is I think there's a lot more to this, because there's PNUT's Freedom Forum is what I'm talking about, which Mark, the owner, said he paid for with his OnlyFans account. All right. Then now let me tell you, I believe in government overreach. I have to deal with all the ridiculous legislation coming down for farms and homesteads, because I educate people about that all the time. And like the rules, and it's so much. The overreach is so bad. And I think that a lot of people are realizing that Kamala's entirety of her platform is socialist. So I sort of kind of got off on a tangent with PNUT. I just wanted to tell you guys, look into that deeper before you guys jump into believing everything you read about that or you hear, okay? Because I really think something stinks. I smell doo-doo with the owners. I'm really inclined to believe that they have used this as a publicity stunt, and the animals were the ones that paid the ultimate price. And my heart's a little broken, because that's just cruel. It's just, I don't think they meant it to go this far, but I do believe they used it to their benefit. Right. You cannot own any wildlife as a pet in New York. It's the same in New Jersey. I'm reading Tim and Liam's East Coast Adventures. Right. I read that a little bit earlier, but thank you for explaining that to people. Exactly, Mark. Using squirrels as a false flag is disgusting. It's disgusting. Yeah, exactly, Frank. All right. So when you talk about Kamala and oversight, over control of the government, it says here, along with price controls, a central tenet of communist ideology is that Harris also proposed giving $25,000 to first-time homeowners and allocating a total of $1.7 trillion in government handouts, despite the country's ballooning $35 trillion national debt. And to this, Harris's prior threat to snatch patents from drug companies to lower prices, and her support for banning private health insurance, therefore forcing all Americans onto a government healthcare system. Yeah, I agree, Tiki Tim. The search warrant and the strong arm removal was overbearing. That's why we're talking about government overreach. That's why we went from the squirrel into government overreach. That's right. Learn how to hide your food, because if Harris gets in, you're going to need to. It goes on to say that basically you cannot create a fiction of a new miracle-making economic system, which is based on price controls. All right. They then exported this fantasy to the West in the hopes of using it as an instrument for subversion of capitalistic systems, where it took root in academia and a fringe left political group. Okay. In other words, price controls were the first step toward implementing full-scale communism, folks. Lenin argued that the free market price system was a fundamental obstacle to constructing a worker state ruled by a party's vanguard. The price control system would address a profound distrust of anything related to the state inherited from the inglorious past. Did you hear what I said? Inherited from the inglorious past. What is she always saying? That she's, we're going to be unburdened by what was. Yeah. So then it goes on to say, likewise, the 2024 Democrat Party platform and economic agenda is rife with references and allusions to equity and social justice. As part of this equitable agenda, Lenin recommended that the party control the price of electricity, housing, and food. Eventually, the party's implementation of these policies led to the disappearance of the old price system, with strict control maintained over prices in every single industry. Shortages, debt, and waste followed, causing an enormous economic crisis and eventual collapse of entire countries. So I went to Kamala's page, and of course, there's this big blurb there, grocery prices. The candidate says she would work in her first 100 days to help Congress pass a national ban on price gouging for food. There it is. She's already telling you that if she gets in, that she's going to aggressively investigate price fixing in meat supply chains specifically, right? So she's going to go after, but here again, it sounds great, but it's not, folks. Then she says that she's going to expand the earned income tax credit for workers in lower income jobs, which would cut taxes by $1,250. And as previously said, she would continue President Joe Biden's promise to not raise taxes on American households earning under $400,000, and does support raising taxes for high earners and corporations. Here's my problem. Does anybody sit at home and think to yourself, I'm never going to make more than this amount of money in 1 year? I would hope not, guys. This is America. You have an opportunity to go out there and be a millionaire with anything that you put your hands to if you work hard. But just going after the rich, who are the people that are supporting her, and corporations, is going to crash our economy worse. Here's the one that's going to lead us into the Federal Reserve, which is really what I wanted to talk to you about today. Harris has vowed to maintain the Federal Reserve's independence after Trump said he believed the president should have at least a say in the Fed's decisions. The Fed is an independent entity, and as president, I would never interfere in the decisions that the Fed makes. Who are her handlers? Let's just ask that question. Who are Harris's handlers? Because if she won't even admit that the Fed needs oversight, we have a real problem with her. And I hope everybody understands that. Like, the Fed is not even part of the federal government, folks. Oh, absolutely, Gator. The rich will pass the cost on down to the people. You are 100% right. I have a book here. It's called Killing the Planet. You guys should look for this. Amazing. Discusses the Fed in detail. It says, I'm going to read you just one little quote. It's called The Vampires. Mr. Chairman, we have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve banks, hereinafter called the Fed. The Fed has cheated the government of these United States and the people of the United States out of enough money to pay our national debt. Think about that. This evil institution has impoverished and ruined the people of the United States, has bankrupted itself, and has practically bankrupted our government. It has done this through it has done this through the defects of the law under which it operates, through the maladministration of that law by the Fed, and through the corrupt practices of the moneyed vultures who control it. Some people think that the Federal Reserve banks are the United States government's institutions. Yet, they are private monopolies which prey upon the people of the United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign customers. Foreign and domestic speculators and swindlers, and rich and predatory moneylender. In that dark crew of financial pirates, there are those who would cut a man's throat to get $1 out of his pocket. There are those who would send money into states to buy votes to control our legislature. There are those who maintain international propaganda for the purpose of deceiving us into granting of new concessions, which will permit them to cover up their past misdeeds and set again in motion their gigantic train of crime. The Honorable Louis McFadden remarks in Congress in 1934. Folks, 90 years ago, there were still good men and women in our government that were trying to get the Fed out of America's business. Are you aware that the Fed can cause a depression overnight? They can crash the stock market. They can devalue the dollar. Right, Rainey Allen? 1934. It's amazing. Wait a second. I see you guys. Who are y'all talking to? I don't know. Right, Cardi B made me so mad. She said that Kamala Harris told me to my face she was going to change the economy. Yeah, it's not happening. Hey, Leslie. All right. So again, Harris has vowed to not take on the Fed. She has flat said it. Put me in. Rockefeller, Rothschild, all of you rich billionaires, put me in. I will not bother your empire of money on the backs of American citizens. Yet, President Trump he's been quoted saying, if I'm the president, I should at least have a say in what you're doing to the country that I'm over. Better keep that in mind. I'm just saying, you guys, it's going to get ugly before it gets good. All right. So now that we've talked about from PNUT to government oversight, to Kamala Harris socialist policies, which is going to bring more government oversight. You think what they did to PNUT is bad? Wait till they come after your cats and your dogs, because they don't want dogs big enough that can protect you, or you're living in community housing and cats aren't allowed. Just wait. Because if they have their way, we're all going to be in 15-minute cities, unable to have any freedoms, folks. Because remember what they said. Good afternoon, John. Remember what they said to us. You will own nothing and be happy. Yeah, we'll be eating the bugs. So I'm just saying. And that's another reason they'll get rid of all the animals, folks, because Miss Patty said, leave my chickens alone. Right. They have such evil plans, folks. That's why we have to be aware of what they're doing, and we have to understand what they're saying to us. So it sounds all innocent when Kamala says, the Fed is an independent entity, and as president, I would never interfere in the decisions that the Fed makes. But really, it's evil as hell. And she's basically telling you, I know they're killing the planet. I know, but we're going to be unburdened by what was. Yeah. I'm just saying. Yeah, people still vote for him. People are like, I love Kamala. And I'm like, oh, you need a coconut. I mean, like, for real. Let me hit you with one. So I want you guys to hear this, because I think it's super duper important. It is about the weather. First, we're going to start with what you need to get real quick as we're going into the election. Here's some things I need you to prep with. My daughter is making funny faces at me.
I'm not talking nice to haves. I'm talking absolutely can't survive without. And believe me, if you don't take action now, you're going to be the one scrambling, wondering why you didn't listen. So grab a pen, make that shopping list, and get ready. Because we're starting with number 30. Number 30, instant mashed potatoes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Instant mashed potatoes. Brands like Idahoan and Hungry Jack are your best friends here. You think you can live without them? Think again. When you're staring down an empty pantry with no fresh produce in sight, these babies will be your saving grace. They're lightweight, they last forever, and all you need is water. That's it. Just some hot water, and boom, you've got a filling, comforting meal. And let's not forget, they're packed with carbs. In a crisis, carbs are fuel, and you're going to need all the energy you can get. So don't just
we're going to get to the weather.
box.
We're going to get there.
Buy 10. Trust me, When you're sitting down to a hot bowl of creamy mashed potatoes in the middle of chaos, you'll thank yourself. Number 29, peanut butter. Peanut butter, folks, listen carefully because this is non-negotiable. We're talking Jif, Skippy, or any brand that's packed with protein and healthy fats. Peanut butter is shelf-stable for months, if not longer, and it's one of the most calorie-dense foods you can store. Imagine this. When fresh meat is long gone and you're rationing out your canned goods, peanut butter will give you that punch of protein and energy you need to keep going. Slap it.
Okay, so I'm loving you guys' comments. Yes, share with each other. Talk to each other. I'm going to go over a couple more that I'd like to see if you guys could get a couple of these in your pantry before Election Day, okay? It would make me feel better knowing you guys were prepared,
This
all
stuff
right?
isn't just for cooking. It's a disinfectant, a preservative, and a multi-use wonder liquid that could save you in more ways than you can imagine. Got dirty water? Vinegar can help purify it. Need to preserve vegetables when your fridge stops working? Vinegar to the rescue. Run out of cleaning supplies? Vinegar can sanitize surfaces and even help with food prep. You don't want to be the person left without this when things go south. And here's the kicker. It never goes bad. That's right. Vinegar can sit in your stockpile for years and still be as effective as the day you bought it. Grab those gallon jugs now, folks, because when supply chains falter, vinegar will be one of the first things to vanish. Number 25, dry yeast. Now here's one that's flying under the radar for most people. Dry yeast. Red Star, Fleischmann's, or whatever brand you can get your hands on. Trust me, in a survival situation, this tiny little packet could be the key to keeping your family fed. You see, with dry yeast, you can bake your own bread. Imagine the stores are closed, bread shelves are wiped clean, and you're sitting there with a giant bag of flour but no way to make anything out of it. That's where yeast comes in. This stuff lasts for months, even years if you freeze it, and it's your ticket to fresh homemade bread when everything else is gone. You think you'll be fine without it? Think again. When food supplies dry up and you're trying to stretch every last ingredient, baking bread with yeast will be a game changer. You're not just buying a pantry item, you're buying independence. Number 24, canned fruit. I'm talking about canned fruit. Dole, Del Monte, or your local store brand. It doesn't matter. As long as you're...
Yes. Okay, guys, I can tell y'all where to find this. This right here came off of the Finance Daily,
quality cornmeal,
and
will
it
be a
just
game
has a
changer
list.
in your emergency pantry. Why? Because it's versatile, stores forever, and can turn into so many different meals. Pancakes, mush, fritters. Heck, you can even make your own tortillas if you've got the time. Cornmeal is high in carbs, which means it'll keep you energized when you're working through stressful times or rationing food. And
All right, so
corn.
I liked what they said because, yes, I have white vinegar. Yes, I have dry yeast. But he was also talking about make sure you get, if you don't have chickens, make sure you get powdered eggs and some kind of shelf-stable milk, okay? Like a powdered milk or, half and half, something like that, guys. Yes, corned beef hash. You get some cans of tuna. Make sure you got a couple of boxes of crackers because all of those mixed together can really make hearty meals. Now, am I expecting it to be that bad? No. But do I think we should always have prepping on the back of our head at this point? Yes. My 80-year-old neighbor just came down to look at some trees that had fallen in my yard. And rather than burn it, we were like, hey, can you use this for firewood? And he told me, he said, I think this country's fixing to fall apart. My 83-year-old father told me the other day, I think that this country is fixing to fall apart. He has even got where my dad is making shorts on trying to teach people how to find turtles and how to catch ducks and geese and stuff like that with your hands. Because he's like, people may not have weapons, Sam, and they don't have the ability to hunt anymore. Yeah, amen. There's all kind of stuff. Now we're going to talk about weather, and this is very important. Yesterday, I told you guys what was going on with the weather. I brought something to you about Operation Garden Plot, and I read to you, I proved to you, they talk about the moving of the weather manipulation around. Okay, so let's start with Yanni's TV.
Was extremely important to the U.S. Why? Because we are still going to be reliant on oil and gas. What this has more to do with is that we are heading into the fourth industrial revolution that takes 10 times, more than 10 times, the amount of energy consumption that we have now. So it's more or less creating a much more balanced approach, but we have to convince people that we need this massive infrastructure upgrade to do an entire switch. In the meantime, there are no plans to actually disrupt oil and gas production. The only plans are to increase the amount of energy we consume. And whether you agree with me or not, all energy comes at a cost. And that cost is about to be more than 10 times in the near future. The fact is that none of this is actually helping the planet. In fact, it is destroying it. If you look across the world, forests are being cut down for lithium and cobalt mines. When you look across the United States, national forests, which have been put in place to protect endangered species, are being turned into lithium mines without a second question or thought. They'll try and do the best they can to protect those species. But the point is that nobody cares. Nobody cares. This is the next gold rush. And you got to think about this a little bit, folks. Think about all of these gold rushes throughout history. Think about when people first came to the eastern seaboard of the United States. It was rich with resources, rich with agricultural resources. Agricultural resources people in Europe hadn't seen before. This land was like the Holy Land. And there were a couple million people living here, and those people were welcoming. There were communities that worked with communities. There were settlers that worked with native indigenous communities. Everything was fine when people first arrived. But the resources were too great. The resources were too valuable. So suddenly you have disease come in and wipe out a few million people. That happened. And once that happened, it opened up the eastern seaboard. So everybody coming over had a free place to go. And then we made treaties with those people, treaties out west, but we discovered gold. And a couple oligarchs from the United States were able to actually recruit our own armies to go and remove those people from the treaties of the lands they put them on. They were able to convince, often through misinformation to Congress, that these savages had to be removed. Why? Because they wanted the gold.
And he actually says he is not calling the indigenous people savages, but that is what these oligarchs convinced Congress, that the natives were savages. And they sent our army and they moved them again, and they moved them again. This is very important. I'm laying groundwork. I need you to just listen for just a second longer.
Artificial intelligence, technological revolution, whatever you want to call it. I've heard so many people talking about the environmental hazards of trying to get that lithium out, the technology advances we would need in mining to be able to get that lithium out. There have been a whole lot of things that people have immediately started to talk about, start to brainstorm over, but they haven't talked about the people that are living there. Why? Perhaps they already have a way of getting rid of the people. I don't know. And we're going to play a clip for you from Redacted. They had some great information on this.
All right. Well, since World War II, the United States government have been able to manipulate the weather. That's a fact. You can look it up. Since the 1960s, we've been able to control and even weaponize the weather. That's a fact. You can look it up.
We did it in Vietnam. Yeah.
Exactly. And in the 1970s, the United States Congress put forth a bill to regulate weather manipulators. That's right. In case you had some sort of a weather manipulation tool, the United States government wanted you to register it with the United States government and get a license for it. That's how much we were doing this in the United States. So we'll come back to that part of the story in a second. But first, when Hurricane Katrina destroyed New Orleans and the Gulf Coast in 2005, a lot of people got very rich. I don't know if you know that. That story hasn't really been covered or talked much about. Millionaires, in fact, were made as a result of it. Millionaires were made almost overnight as a result of this destruction. 80% of the land, of course, was destroyed in New Orleans at the time, and all the way up through the Mississippi into Biloxi and everything else was wiped away. Most of it purchased by property developers. And black residents of New Orleans at the time weren't stupid. They knew exactly what was happening to them. Here's a nice paycheck, now leave and never come back. We'll take your land. Don't worry, get out of here.
So, and I just yesterday, when I was telling everybody about Project
Opposition
Operation
forces or groups may attempt to gain knowledge of this plan
and use that knowledge to prevent or degrade the effectiveness of the actions outlined in this plan. In order to protect operations undertaken to accomplish the mission, it is necessary to control sources of information. So what are they going to control? News, all forms of media. What do you see? George Soros bought up, what was it, over 200 radio stations right before the election? They're going to control what? All forms of information. OPSEC is the effort to protect operations by identifying and controlling intelligence indicators susceptible to exploitation. Responsibility for Operation Security. OPSEC is that one. The denial of information to an enemy is inherently a command responsibility. Let me repeat that for you guys, because that's a great one. The denial of information to an enemy is inherently a command responsibility. Again, you must deny that this is here. You have to deny that there are bases set up around America with weather manipulating equipment to control and herd the people. Deny. You must control all forms and avenues of information. And the denial of information to an enemy is inherently a command responsibility. So all the leaders of every alphabet agency, Griswold for FEMA, all of them must deny, because you and I are the enemy. I didn't write this, the Operation Garden Plot. Your government wrote this. However, since the operations officer at any level of command is responsible to his commander for the overall planning and execution of operations, he has the principal staff interest in assuring maximum protection of the operation and must assume primary responsibility, instability for ensuring that the efforts of all other staff elements are coordinated toward this end. Everybody associated with the operation must assist in safeguarding the security of the operation. And what is the operation? Again, it is very, very simple. This operation, the entire thing, the entirety of Operation Garden Plot is one thing, was a plan to use U.S. Army as civil disturbance task force to counter the possibility that local police could be hesitant or sympathetic toward non-violent protesters. Okay, so that was yesterday. And I know yesterday was very long. And I figured a lot of people might have missed the part where they admit in Operation Garden Plot in black and white that they have weather manipulation stations all around the United States, as well as portable ones. And somebody said, my hair looks fabulous. Thanks, Sally. Thanks. It's that Melaleuca. If you guys want to make the switch, I'm going to put that in this at the end of the video. All right. So I showed all that to you for a reason. You guys ready to see the truth about weather manipulation? It's mind blowing. All right, so just watch.
All right, my friends, I'm about to compare Hurricane Helene to the massive flooding going on in New Mexico. This is insane. First off, we got to get this out of the way. We know weather modification is just a theory. We're just spitballing here. But I want to show you something that has to do with the flooding that has taken place in New Mexico. And I'm going to show you an example where you can literally see weather being created over Area 51. It then gets shot with radar beams and then turns into a storm a few hundred miles miles in size, and you see it flow right through Arizona and into New Mexico. My friends, check this out. All right, in order to start understanding how this compares to Hurricane Helene and why this flooding was so bad, all you need to do is look at the last couple days. And what you're seeing is a low pressure system right here, literally spinning counterclockwise for multiple days in the same spot. It does not move. This alone is very rare to have a stalled out system just sitting for days, specifically in the southwest of the United States. And as we move to current time, we can see this basically just lifted off that area, and people are wondering why this flood took place. But what they don't understand is how rare of a situation it is. And how
Okay, now let me fast forward it to show you guys the good stuff, because they show you the beams. All right, here we go.
Oriented, you can see right here, it is directly over Area 51. This is not made up.
Oh, wait, sorry. I messed it up. I'm gonna have to get an iPad so I can make it bigger.
So that's where this is originating from. These dots are being dropped over Area 51 and then shot with these lasers. And just to get everyone oriented, you can see right here, it is directly over Area 51. This is not made up. This is actually being dropped over that private property. And now we're going to go into detail and watch how they enhance it in real time. We're going to be watching this little speckle anomaly, and you're going to see it get zapped 2 different times. I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and you're going to see 2 zaps hit it, and just as that happens, another part of this begins to peel off. Watch this. 1, 2. And as soon as that happens, this part peels right off. Let's backtrack, and you're going to see the 2 beams. Here is 1 right there. There is the second right there. And then watch as this little system here gets bigger with a piece of it trailing off right after the beams hit it. This is unbelievable stuff. And you can see that it's also being shot from different radar towers as it scoots across the states here. Now, keep in mind how
it was being controlled.
State right here.
It was being controlled. And then this is the most important thing, because they admit it. All right, you guys ready?
Full-fledged weather system created from little specks over Area 51. My friends,
We're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
that's right.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion, but it is fascinating. I mean, lasers really to change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. Let's do it again. All the way back to the beginning. We'll start with the first beam right here and the creation of these little specks. So we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. They're being created from nothing. Watch, if we backtrack another frame, this thing disappears. There's nothing there. The very next frame, we get the dots in the first beam, and then we see it get hit and hit over and over again, even from distance. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental, however, in the laboratory so far it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate the rain. It condenses around the sea.
So yeah, it's real. And you're right, guys. I know a lot of you have been trying to tell people and they didn't listen.
Document called Owning the Weather by 20.
All right. So this guy goes on to talk about a document called Owning the Weather by 2025. I found it. I did. You guys know I like to dig up that stuff. So, Owning the Weather in 2025 is a 1996 U.S. Air Force report that outlines a strategy for using weather modification to achieve military objectives. All of this goes back to Operation Garden Plot, every bit of it, because somebody said in the comments yesterday, oh, that's not what I thought they meant, Sam, with, talking about having a meteorologist on staff and all this other stuff. They're like, I don't think that's what they mean. Oh, no, baby, that's what they mean. And the reason I know is because they wrote a report called Owning the Weather in 2025. The security markings is approved for public release. And it goes on. It was a research paper presented to the Air Force in August of 1996. There it is. There it is. That's it. It says the 2025 is a study designed to comply with a directive from the Chief of Staff of the Air Force to examine the concepts, capabilities, and technologies the United States will require to remain the dominant air and space force in the future. Presented on the June 17th, 1996, this report was produced in the Department of Defense School Environment of Academic Freedom and the Interest of Advancing Concepts Related to National Defense. In 2025, uninhabited aerospace vehicles, UAVs, are routinely used for weather modification operations. By cross-referencing desired attack times with wind and thunderstorm forecast and the SPOT spot satellite's projected orbit, the WFSE generates mission profiles for each UAV. Having near real-time information from a networked sensor array. You guys remember when I did the video on the die-offs along the Florida coast of fish because they had sunk all those satellite arrays along the coast, and I was showing y'all the videos on that? Okay. Prior to the attack, which is coordinated with forecasted weather conditions, the UAVs begin cloud generation and seeding operations. How many of you were talking about how bad the cloud seeding and the chemtrails were above all these areas that are being hit so hard right now? That is part of this. They must cloud seed. They must chemtrail before the coordinated attack. This is their own research paper, folks. I'm not making it up. You can go to a military site and look this up yourself. And I'll give you all the website in just a second. It says here, the UAVs disperse a cirrus shield to deny enemy visual and infrared surveillance. Simultaneously, microwave heaters, let me repeat that for you guys. Microwave heaters create localized scintillation to disrupt active sensing via synthetic aperture radar, SAR systems, such as commercially available Canadian search and rescue satellite-aided tracking, which will be widely available by 2025. Remember, this was written in 1996. So some of it, they knew that the technology was beginning and that they had it, but it was not currently in place. So they're saying how they could do it in 2025, but they're in 1996. So some of it's a little different than actually how they're doing it. Other cloud seeding operation calls a developing thunderstorm to intensify over the target. Over the target. So say they take Operation Garden Plot and they decide that they need to herd nonviolent citizens for whatever reason out of that area. Well, they would just use this. They would just use this. They would target. Severely limiting the enemy's capability to defend. It says here that monitors the entire operation in real time and notes the successful completion of another very important but routine weather modification mission. This scenario may seem far-fetched, but by 2025, it is within the realm of possibility. The next chapter explores the reasons for weather modification, defines the scope of it, and examines trends that will make it possible in the next 30 years. Then they have a whole chapter called, Why Would We Want to Mess with the Weather? They actually wrote that. Why would we want to mess with the weather? It says, according to the Jen Gordon Sullivan, former Army Chief of Staff, as we leap technology into the 21st century, We will be able to see the enemy day or night in any weather and go after him relentlessly. A global, precise, real-time, robust, there's that word. I hate it when the Democrat Party uses it. Systematic weather modification capability would provide war-fighting sinks with a powerful force multiplier to achieve military objectives. Since weather will be common to all possible futures, a weather modification capability would be universally applicable and have utility across the entire spectrum of conflict. People have always wanted to be able to do something about the weather. In the U.S., as early as 1839, newspaper archives tell of people with serious and creative ideas of how to make it rain. It says, however, controversy since 1947 concerning the possible legal consequences arising from the deliberate alteration of large storm systems meant that little future experimentation could be conducted on storms which had a potential to reach land. What happened in 1947? Because I told you guys what happened. I had a whole bunch of information. They just had the 70-year celebration of the first time that they cloud seeded a hurricane, and that hurricane hit land and caused death and destruction. In fact, Hurricane Helene followed the same path route. Yes, Miss Patty, I'm so excited. God's so good. All right. It says between now and 2005, technological advances in meteorology and the demand for more precise weather information by global businesses will lead to the successful identification and parameterization of the major variables that affect weather. By 2015, advances in computational capability, modeling techniques, and atmospheric information tracking will produce a highly accurate and reliable weather prediction capability, validified against real-world weather. In the following decade, population densities put pressure on the worldwide availability and cost of food and usable water. Massive life and property losses associated with natural weather disasters will become increasingly unacceptable. These pressures prompt governments and/or other organizations who are able to capitalize on the technological advances of the previous 20 years to pursue a highly accurate and reasonably precise weather modification capabilities. Now, they said that by 2015, they would be able to accurately predict the weather. We're almost in 2025, and there's people getting killed left and right, and they're not doing diddly squat to help us. Why? Because we're sitting on top of what they need. We are sitting on top of what they need. And you can read all about it, folks, because it is no joke. And here's what made me really upset about, I thought Ron DeSantis was one of the good guys. But I remember seeing a Forbes interview right after Helene hit, before Milton hit, and he denied that anybody could use weather as a weapon. Here it is.
Are possibly engaging in some misinformation about some entity controlling the weather. Can you take this opportunity to denounce that misinformation and set the record straight for folks who believe someone is controlling the weather?
Look, if I could control the weather, I would do, 78 and sunny year round. Now we get that, a lot in Florida, coming up in months, but there would be no reason to ever do. So look, and this is on both sides. You kind of have some people think government can do this, and then others think it's all. The reality is what we see.
Did y'all see them all laughing? Every single person behind him in FEMA and military garb laughed at that question. They laughed at us. It is their own document in front of our faces that is telling us that they're doing this to us, and they laugh at us, folks. I want to see what this one is. Hold on.
Leaders say significant progress was made.
The task force
Okay, so I wanted to show you guys one more thing real fast. What, baby?
What would that work in?
In the car?
They'll be suffering from trying to survive another day anxiety. How is it possible that so few even now sense or see the oncoming train of total collapse, societal and environmental? Again, the human race, like the occupants of a car parked on a rail crossing with the oncoming train, lights flashing, horn blaring, and the occupants of this car continue to fight over what station to put the radio on. Spain just got hit with a year's worth of rain, North Carolina the same, and a few months ago, Dubai with 2 years of rain within 6 hours. Was Dubai doubly uncooperative to the controllers that shouldn't be? Is that why it got hit with twice as much? I'll get to this in a moment. From Gizmodo Tech News, the billionaire plot to block out the sun. From that report, can thousands of pounds of sulfur dioxide pumped into the stratosphere reverse global warming? Question mark. We may soon find out. What are they leaving out? They're leaving out the fact that over 75 years of other elements, much more toxic still, saturating the atmosphere. Lab test proven, not speculation, not theory, not hypothesis. This report from Gizmodo continues. What was once a goofy plot from Highlander 2 and The Simpsons may one day come to pass. Think about how absurd that point is. When we have film footage of former U.S. President Lyndon Johnson 62 years ago in 1962 stating on film on the record that we had the power to control the world's cloud layer then, and he who controls the weather controls the world, and yet they continue to try to paint this as, quote, a goofy plot from Highlander and The Simpsons. That's absurdity.
I'm just saying, folks.
Any that are even slightly awake. No ozone layer, game over. For terrestrial life on Earth and most aquatic life, we are well on that road already. Here's the title of this published science report. Deadly ultraviolet UVC and UVB penetration to Earth's surface, human and environmental health implications. Again, published science study. Conclusion. The veracity of our data and data from other sources call into question the validity of atmospheric ozone models. They're completely fictitious to, again, mask the...
Okay, so we know that since 1996, they were predicting by 2005, they would have total understanding of what's going on in our atmosphere. That is in, let me find all this for you guys and pop it in here so y'all can do a little bit of your own research. Weather as a force can be found here. And please, when you pop on, hit the like button. Tell me your first name, where you're from, guys. All right, so that's where you're going to find, that's the website where you're going to find Weather as a Force Multiplier, owning the weather in 2025. That is a real thing. It is a real thing. And I wanted to bring something up to you guys. You guys ever heard of color, the color revolution? I had not. One of you asked me to look into it. And it says to start a revolution, first you need to pick a color. Whether it's the Rose Revolution in Georgia in 2003, the Orange Revolution in Ukraine in 2004, the Tulip Revolution in Kazakhstan in 2005, or the Arab Spring in Asia and Africa in 2011. The past decades has seen the U.S. plan and implement color revolutions or wars without gunpowder in many places around the world, frantically exporting American values. Instead of launching military operations directly in the name of democracy, the U.S. prefers to use color revolutions as a tool to intervene in other countries' internal affairs to subvert governments in order to reinforce its global control, which the U.S. has found more efficient and economical. It is estimated that in the past 3 decades, among all the toppled governments, those that were subverted by such nonviolent revolutions accounted for more than 90%. So Basically, since the late 20th century, color revolutions have swept through Central Asia, the Soviet Union, and Eastern European countries. If you dig deep enough, you're going to find the United States hands all over it, right? Sounds like the Rainbow Clan. I feel that. Hey, Jason from Seattle. In fact, I'll be in Seattle in 2 weeks. I fly in on the 12th. At the end of 2003, the U.S. forced Edward something, the then president of Georgia, to resign on grounds of fraud in vote counting. Who was president in 2003? I'm just curious. Anybody know? 2003 president. It's probably going to be a stinking George W. Bush. Of course. Of course. The biggest turncoat ever. I mean, he was the whole Bush family. Basically, you just want to go ahead and count them as Democrats. And if you do, we have systematically had Democrat presidents for the past 20-something years. And look at the socialist, communistic agenda, the Antichrist system that has been in place across America. Oh, no, I agree, Michelle. But guys, I often see the best in people. When I first heard about the squirrel issue, PNUT the squirrel, I thought to myself, oh, that's terrible. And I mentioned it to Stephen and Savannah, my daughter. And they both looked at me and they went, Mom, there is a law in certain states that you can't have wildlife as pets. So why was this guy all over social media with his illegal pets while he was trying to run an animal sanctuary and then get angry when they come take his pets? And I looked at him and I went, oh my God, you're so right. And that's what made me dig deeper. So I hope and pray that all of you have people in your family that don't let you get your emotions out in front of the facts. Because I was knee jerking like everybody else. I'm like, oh my God, they killed this squirrel. It's terrible. And my family's like, I mean, it is, but why was he all over the place with his squirrel? And then I started like listening to even this guy, what's his name? Benny.
In fact, the number one story in the world right now is about PNUT the squirrel. It's a story of a grotesque government overreach and evil, and it is unifying the entire country and may well affect the result of the 2024 presidential election. This may be the great determining factor that tips the scales in favor of Donald Trump and against government tyranny. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to PNUT the squirrel. PNUT the squirrel has millions of social media followers. Here's 570, just 70,000 just on Instagram alone. PNUT the squirrel is a rescue squirrel that brought joy to millions and millions of people every single day. PNUT the squirrel has 3 million social media followers across platforms and just did cute little squirrel things with his owners. Look at this. This is the life of PNUT the squirrel.
Yeah, but again, his owners have a Patreon. They now have a GoFundMe with basically $130,000 in it. They started an animal rescue off of their OnlyFans. And the whole time, this guy could have easily had this paperwork done to protect the squirrel and raccoon, and he never did. Yes, Michelle, Trump is literally telling the world that we don't need. In fact, I'm telling you guys, they're never going to stop drilling for oil. We need more energy than we have right now. So when they tell you that, okay, the part of the Green New Deal is they had to dumb everybody down so people wouldn't understand the science, okay, which they've done over the past 20 years. And then they have to get everybody to believe that lithium and electric cars and smart meters and all of this is going to reduce the energy that we use and save the planet. Really what they're doing is capping how much energy you and I can use so that they can amp up all of their AI, because AI takes a million times more energy than anything we've ever tried. So it is all basically a smoke and mirror. They're never going to stop drilling for natural gas and oil, ever, period. All they're going to do now is rape the earth to drag the lithium, the cobalt, and the quartz out. And if you guys didn't learn anything from all the stuff that I did working after the fire in Maui, that the lithium and the cobalt has poisoned the soil in Lahaina. So it's, yeah, a green new death. That's exactly what it is. Well said, friend. It's the green new death. And I, like everybody else, I now think the PNUT the squirrel was a big smoke and mirror. I think that it was a distraction, just like the Saturday Night Live skit. How dare they bring Kamala on 48 hours before? I mean, I'm just so against that. Obvious play. All I can tell y'all is, and I've said this before, and I need all of you to grab it and hold on to it. It does not matter who is in the White House. You are a child of God. You're going to be okay. But your faith is going to be tested in ways that we have never seen before. Our ancestors would be telling you, just pick up a couple of extra cans of potted meat. Yeah, get that extra bag of rice, honey. You're going to need it. Definitely pick up an extra pound of sugar. Yeah, I know that you've got 2 pounds, but just get 1 extra pound. You won't regret it. You know what I think when I buy a little extra stuff and I stockpile it? Sometimes money gets tight. I mean, the transmission on our truck literally broke down on the way to Stephen going to work on Friday. The cost of that is $2,400 before taxes to rebuild the transmission. Praise God. It's the first time this truck has had any major issues in 7 years, and it has over 300,000 miles. So I'm okay with the transmission going. It's over 300,000 miles. Eventually something was going to break, right? But thank God that I had $2,400 that I could do it. But when I tell you that it took all the money, because I don't work with credit cards, it took all the extra money. So thank God that I had a few extra things put up. So I don't have to go get groceries this week because I had extra put up for the rough times. It's not a bad thing to put up for a rainy day, folks. It doesn't matter. It's just, I promise you, get your car filled up, all your vehicles filled up the night of November 4th. You do not know what's going to happen. Just be prepared. And somebody's like, I'm not hiding in my house. I'm not asking you to hide. Do we look like we're the hiding type of people? Oh, thank you, Nancy, for joining as a member. I'm not a hider, folks. I don't hide from anything, but I am a preparer. I am putting up a fence around my yard in the next month. I'm digging a second well and I'm putting up solar panels so I don't have to worry about if they cut off water to everybody else. Our power, I can still get water to the animals and myself on my property. I grow a tremendous amount of my own food, and I grow almost all the food that my animals eat. So I'm in a way better position than most people. And I'm telling you, be prepared. I'm training my dogs to canine protection. I am stockpiling a little bit of things that I don't create or grow on my own property. There's nothing wrong with being prepared. I mean, yeah, I could see some people might want a bunker. I don't believe that. I've got a bug out bag with every conceivable thing in the world in it. If that bag can't save me, I was not meant to live. Yep. Steven said they're putting razor wire up at the White House. Yeah. When you see the government boarding up businesses in DC, you had better be prepared. And I don't want to hear one person when the crap hits and they're like, I didn't know. Well, you should have known. Yep, I agree. Get a couple of extra gallons of gas and gas cans, and just think, if you don't use it now, maybe you'll use it to cut your grass in the spring. It's not going to go bad. Okay? Especially if a generator. Just act like a big storm's coming. But this one is spiritual. We know it's coming. You know it's coming. So stop being like that. Prepare yourself. It is your responsibility to save yourself and anybody else that might be around you that's going to need to be saved. Okay? It's your responsibility. It's not the government's. So get ready for it. I love you guys. I've got to go. It's Sunday. I'm tired. I've been real tired the last couple of days. I don't know, but I've been pushing really hard getting these videos out. Been doing a lot of deep dive research, and it's not that easy to research some of this stuff. It's heartbreaking to see what the government is so willing to do to the American citizens, and that we're all just walking around with our heads stuck up our butts with like no idea. If you would like to get one of our amazing shirts that I had on the other day, all you have to do is sign up for our newsletter. Leslie put it out today. Almost 250 people get our newsletter bi-monthly. It is well worth it. It was great. And oh yeah. So look, she just put it in. It's right there. She just put it in there. The cost of it. When I get off, I'll put up the different ways that you can send the money for it. And I'll send you one of our shirts as long as supplies and sizes last. It's well worth it, folks, to get our newsletter. Now, if you signed on as a member, you get the newsletter as part of that. So you just need to make sure I get your email so that I can get the newsletter to you, because that is how it comes. I love you guys so very much. Y'all are amazing. Please share all this information with people. So I would like somebody to do a little more deep dive into PNUT's owners, because I think they're dirty and I think we should expose them for using those animals like they've done. I do. I think they used those animals, and shame on them for that. I'm not as much mad with the government as I am with the owner, because that's the law. We're supposed to be a nation that follows the law. If you don't like the law, then you don't break it and then let other people pay for it. You put time and effort into changing the law. Oh, thank you, Tracy. Thank you. But again, you've got the whole nation running around saying, sue the government. Why? They did what they were supposed to do. They followed the law, whether we all like it or not. They followed the law. He didn't. And I have an issue with him and his OnlyFans with his package out. Every time you tried to look at the squirrel, all you saw was him. It was ridiculous. So, but maybe this will get more people to vote for Trump. So God uses everything to his glory. I love you guys. Have a blessed, amazing day. It's almost November 5th, folks. We're almost there. And then I think we can all take a couple of days off, because we've all worked very hard. And let me tell you one more thing. My godchild's grandmother is voting for Kamala. I am obviously voting for Trump, right? And Monday, which is tomorrow, the kids don't have school, and she wants to early vote for Trump, for Kamala. So I'm keeping the kids so she can go vote. Now, I know that there are a lot of people in this world who be like, that's so dumb. You shouldn't keep those kids. You should make her take them. I'm not going to do that. This is the thing. She and I both are neighbors, and we love the same kids, and we love each other, even though we have totally different political views. So I'm going to babysit so that she can go exercise her American right to vote. Because whether or not I like the fact that she's voting for Kamala, she has the right to vote, and her vote be counted for what it is. And that's what I pray for every American, that every American has their voice heard. It is not okay for anybody to steal, not the left or the right. It doesn't matter that she just voided my vote. I'm not going to, what am I going to do? Tie her up and cut her tires so she can't vote? Seriously? Seriously? You obviously don't watch me long enough. Don't watch. And yeah, I can tell you right now, you and I couldn't be friends. Get mad. I'm just saying. I respect her for being, see, I'm the type of person she could tell me who she's voting for, and we still love each other. Like, I'm not going to unfriend my friend because she's going to vote for somebody else. I love her. She needs somebody to keep the kids so she can go exercise her vote. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch the kids so she can go vote. So I hope that maybe all of you can see it from how I see it. You can still love people who vote for Kamala Harris. They're not inherently evil, even though they might be, how do I say this? Uninformed. I'm just saying. I love you guys. Have a blessed night.